If you want to go and study abroad in the United States or in Europe, the main question you should be asking yourself is, which English exam should I take? The TOEFL or the IELTS? On this video, I'm going to compare both exams to help you decide which exam is better for you. Both exams are great, but depending on your strengths and weaknesses, one exam is going to be better for you than the other. By the way, we also have a full course for the TOEFL and a full course for the IELTS. The links are in the description below. Go and check them out as well. And if you want to get your free TOEFL ebook and your free IELTS ebook, go to the description below and follow the instructions. So first, let's start discussing what are the things in common between these two exams. Both are English sufficiency exams, basically to test your English level. And here are some things in common. Both have 4 sections. They will test listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The maximum score is equivalent to a C2 in the Common European Framework of Reference, which means that if you get the highest possible score in any of the 2 exams, that means that you have almost a total mastery of the English language. And both exams give you the score in anywhere between 4 and 7 days. Okay, especially for the computer delivery exams. Now, perfect. Now let's compare the duration. All right, how long does it take to finish the exam? So here, the duration for the TOEFL is 2 hours. This was recently changed a couple of months ago. Now, the duration for the IELTS is a little longer. Now, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. So there's only 45 minutes of difference between those 2 exams. Now let's talk a little bit about the price, something that's important. Now, the TOEFL has an average price of $230. But of course, there will be a lot of differences depending on the country you live in. It could go anywhere from $205 to $325. We're talking, of course, about American dollars. And then the price of the IELTS on average is $230. But of course, depending on the country you live in, it could range anywhere from $210 to $250. Now let's compare the scoring system. So what are the scores like on these exams? So for the TOEFL, you get a total score of 120. It goes from 0 to 120. Each section accounts for 30 points. So at the end, they will add them up and you can get a maximum of 120 points. On the IELTS, the score goes from 0 to 9, 9 being the highest. And each section is scored also 0 to 9. And at the end, they will make an average in order to get the result. Now, what about the formats? What about the ways in which you could take the exams? So for the TOEFL, you have 2 formats. You have the in-person computer exam, which basically it's on a computer, but you go to the testing center, which is the most conventional way to take it. And then you have the home edition, which is the online edition that will allow you to take the TOEFL from home. On the other hand, the IELTS has 3 formats. Okay, first of all, you have the in-person computer exam, the same thing as the TOEFL. You take it on a computer, but you go to the testing center. Then you have the in-person paper exam, which is an older version in which you take the exam on a piece of paper at a testing center. And then finally, you have the IELTS online. Okay, but the difference between the IELTS online and the TOEFL online is that the IELTS online is a little bit more limited. It is just available in some few selected countries. This is the list of countries in which you can take the IELTS online.
Round 1, fight!
Okay, so now we're going to start with the most important part. We're going to compare the content of both exams, okay? And we're going to start with the listening section. The first thing I have to say about the listening section is this. Unlike the IELTS, the TOEFL will test your listening skills in several parts of the exam. Okay, not only in the listening section, but in several parts. So just beware. So the first and most notorious difference is basically the accent you'll find on the audios. This is where you will truly realize that the TOEFL is American-made, while the IELTS is British-made. The TOEFL will use a standard American accent for most of their audios, while the IELTS will use a standard British accent for most of their audios. Well, which is easier for you to understand will depend on your personal preferences and what you're used to. Do you want to go with a pure American accent, or do you prefer it the British way? Now, the second difference between both exams for the listening section is maybe the most important. On the TOEFL, you will first listen to the audio, okay? And then after you're finished listening to the audio, you will have to answer the questions. For this, of course, you want to take notes in order to remember the content. This is different from the IELTS. On the IELTS, you will have to answer the questions as the audio is playing. So by the time you finish listening to the audio, you will also have finished answering the last question. This is a major difference. The third difference for the listening section is that on the TOEFL, most questions are multiple choice. So you will just have to select the right question and click on it. Basically, you don't have to type in or write anything. Now on the IELTS, this is different because the IELTS has more question types, more different question types. And also you get some question types in which you have to type in your answer. And let me tell you, there are tons of rules you have to follow when you're typing in your answer in order to receive full credit. This is also a major difference. Okay, so in conclusion, for the listening section, which exam has the easiest listening section? Well, this depends. I'm going to tell you this, if you feel like you don't have a good memory, and you don't like taking notes, or you are not good at taking notes, then the TOEFL can be more difficult for you than the IELTS. Because on the TOEFL, you have to take notes, okay, especially for the lectures, because if you don't, most likely you are going to forget about the content that was previously mentioned. However, if you are a person who likes to focus, to concentrate on only one thing, on the task you are performing at that time, and you don't like to be interrupted, you don't like to multitask, then the IELTS can be a little difficult for you, because on the IELTS you have to answer as the audio is playing, and that might annoy you if you don't like to be interrupted. Plus on the IELTS you need to have a good spelling, because for those questions in which you type in the answer, if you don't spell them correctly, you won't receive credit. Now, if you want to find out by yourself which exam is better, this is pretty simple. Just go and watch our full free lessons, all right? Our free lesson for TOEFL listening, our free lesson for the IELTS listening, the links are in the description below. Go and watch them now.
Round 1, fight!
So now we're going to compare the second section, the reading section. Okay, the first difference on the reading section is that the TOEFL is a little bit more scientific than the IELTS. That means that the articles that you'll find on the TOEFL are more inclined to the sciences. Natural sciences, biology, geology, economic history, etc., etc. While the IELTS is a little bit more humanistic, all right? More about liberal arts. Think about, for example, pure history, or think about sociology. That will have a huge impact on the vocabulary you'll find on both exams. The TOEFL more scientific, and the IELTS more towards the liberal arts. The second difference is that on the IELTS you'll find a greater variety of question types, questions in different formats, more than the TOEFL. It looks to me like it takes a little bit more time to kind of get used to answering those different formats. The TOEFL, on the other hand, has a more scientific vocabulary, but it has less question types, and the questions seem a little bit more straightforward. So, as a conclusion, which exam has the easiest reading section? Well, that depends. If you are a person who are more into science, I believe that the TOEFL will be easier. But if you are more into liberal arts, then the IELTS might be easier to understand. Now, in my 14 years of experience, after tutoring hundreds of students, I could say that most of the students find the passages on the IELTS easier to understand, but it also takes them more time to get used to answering the question types on the IELTS.
Round 1, fight!
Now we're going to compare the third section, which is the writing section. Okay, first thing I have to say is that the TOEFL has recently made some changes to the writing section, making it shorter and also easier. Okay, this just happened a couple of months ago in July 2023. So that's a big important point. Now, in both exams, you're going to have to write 2 essays. The first essay will be a report on something, and the second essay will be more academic, but also opinion-based. The first difference is that on the first essay, the IELTS will ask you to interpret and report on data that they give you in a graph. Okay, so you're going to have to look at a graph and write an essay. On the TOEFL, this is different because they will ask you to report on information that they give you in a reading and also in a listening passage, in an audio. Now, this is important because now you can see that the TOEFL kind of mixes together the writing section a little bit with the listening section. The second difference is the time you have to write. The IELTS will give you 60 minutes to write at least 400 words combined, while the TOEFL will give you 30 minutes to write at least 250 words combined. This means that the IELTS gives you a little bit more time. Okay, so which one is easier? I would say that for the first essay, the IELTS is definitely easier, because on the IELTS they will ask you to interpret data and report data that they give you in a graph. So basically they are testing your ability to interpret and to report and to write only. While on the TOEFL this is different. They will ask you to read, to listen, to interpret, to report, to write. So there are more things being tested. So in my opinion, that makes the IELTS a little easier for that first question. Now for the second essay, I would say that it depends. Now the TOEFL will give you only 10 minutes to write 100 words at least. This is a very short essay, and that might be good because you have to notice that this is the last question in the exam, and by that time you're already tired and you really want out. You want to finish the whole thing. So the fact that it is short could be advantages. Now, if you want to see it by yourself, this is pretty easy. Just go and watch our full and free lessons, both the lesson for TOEFL writing and for IELTS writing. The links are in the description below.
Round 1, fight!
So now we're going to talk about the fourth section, the speaking section, which is also the most different between both exams. On the IELTS, the speaking section is evaluated in an interview kind of setting in front of a real person, an examiner. Usually you will take this section at a different time than the other three. Now on the TOEFL, this is much different because first and foremost, you won't have to speak to a real person. You will have to record your answers in a computer. And then also you're going to take this section of the exam at the same time you take the other three. So by far this is the biggest difference in both exams. Now one second difference, which is also a huge difference, is that on the TOEFL, the speaking section is a little bit mixed, combined with the reading and listening sections, especially with listening, which means that for most of the questions on the speaking section of the TOEFL, you will first have to listen to an audio. Okay, and after understanding the audio, then you will have to speak. This might be beneficial for you if listening is one of your strengths. Well, which one is easier? Well, that depends, but in my experience, after tutoring hundreds of students, I can tell you that it's easier on the TOEFL to make a student memorize a template so they have something to say. And that will also make them look as if they had a greater English level than what they are actually capable of, especially if they have a low or intermediate level. Now, this is way more difficult to do on the IELTS because on the IELTS it's more of a conversation with a real person, so it has to flow. If it doesn't flow, if you memorize something, that will look very, very odd. On the other hand, if speaking is one of your strengths, then the IELTS will be better for you because it's more natural. You won't have to memorize anything, you won't have to follow too many instructions, it's just more like a free speaking. So if you truly can speak English, if you engage in conversations often with natives or people who speak English and you do it well, then the IELTS might be better for you. Now we're going to go over a little conclusion to help you decide which exam is better for you. Let's start with the IELTS. The IELTS has a faster listening section, which is great for students who don't like taking notes or have trouble memorizing information. Second, the IELTS has less academic vocabulary for the reading section, which is amazing for students who are used to reading blogs and news, but don't have too much experience reading textbooks. Third, on the IELTS you get more time for the writing section, which is great for students who don't get anxious to finish the exam as soon as possible and want to take their time to write. And four, the IELTS has a more realistic speaking section, which is basically perfect for those who are used to speaking in English. Now let's go and see the overview for the TOEFL. The TOEFL has a more scientific reading section, which is great for people who are used to reading textbooks and college material. Second, for the listening section on the TOEFL, you first listen and then you answer, which is great for students who have trouble multitasking and just want to focus on one task at a time. The speaking section is more isolated on the TOEFL, which is perfect for students who get nervous when they talk in front of a real person. And finally, the TOEFL has a faster writing section, which is also perfect for students who want to finish the exam as soon as possible. Now, if I have to summarize this a little further to help you decide which exam to take, I'm going to tell you this. In my 14 years of experience tutoring hundreds of students, both for the TOEFL and the IELTS, I have discovered this, that if your ability to speak is better than your ability to listen, then the IELTS might be right for you. On the other hand, if your ability to listen is better than your ability to speak, then the TOEFL might be better for you. So I hope this video has helped you decide which exam to take. Remember, you are covered both ways because we have a full free complete course for the TOEFL and also a full free complete course for the IELTS here on YouTube. The links are in the description below. Go and watch them. So it doesn't really matter which exam you choose. Liberty has you covered. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. My name is Rod. I'm with Liberty and see you next time.